It was a bright, wind-kissed afternoon when President Donald Trump, taking a rare break from his packed schedule, made an unannounced visit to a small fishing town along the coast of Maine. Known for its rugged beauty and quiet rhythms, the town was far removed from the constant churn of national headlines. Life there moved with the tides, not the news cycle. As the motorcade rolled in, a small crowd gathered. Some cheered. Others watched in silence, curious but cautious. Among them stood Jack Miller, a man in his late 50s whose face bore the unmistakable marks of a life spent at sea. His hands were thick with calluses, his hair streaked by years of sun and salt. Jack was a fisherman, had been for as long as anyone could remember, and nearly everyone in town knew him. Jack hadn't planned on meeting the president, but when he saw Trump standing near a line of weathered fishing boats, gazing out over the water with an unguarded, thoughtful expression, something stirred in him. After a moment's hesitation, Jack stepped forward. "Mr. President," he said, tipping his worn cap, "I don't have much to offer, but I hauled in a fresh catch this morning. Would you join me for a meal? I'll cook it right here." Trump blinked, clearly surprised. The man's humility stood in sharp contrast to the usual formality and noise that surrounded him. After a brief pause, Trump smiled. "Why not?" he said. "I like that." Jack led him to a small, weather-beaten fishing shack a short walk from the docks. Inside, a stove crackled softly as Jack went to work. He moved with the steady confidence of someone who had done this thousands of times. Filleting the fish, seasoning it simply with butter, salt, and pepper, then laying it gently into the pan. Trump sat in an old wooden chair, the scent of fresh fish filling the room. There were no cameras, no aides pressing in, just the quiet hum of a town settling into itself. He felt a calm he hadn't known in a long time. When Jack slid the plate across the table, he shrugged. "Nothing fancy, just what I catch every day." Trump took a bite and paused. The flavors were clean and honest, unmasked by excess. For a moment, he closed his eyes. "This is incredible," he said softly. "I forget how good simple things can be. You've got a real gift." Jack smiled, modest and unassuming. "Just doing what I love." As they ate, the conversation drifted, from fishing techniques to life, and eventually to politics. Jack spoke plainly, without polish or pretense. "People don't really understand this life," he said. "We fight the weather, the markets, sometimes even the government, just to keep going." Trump listened carefully, staring out the small window toward the open ocean. "I hear you," he said. "No matter how high someone climbs, it's people like you doing the real work. We can't forget that." Jack studied him for a long moment. "I hope you mean it," he said, "because folks like us often feel forgotten." "I won't forget," Trump replied, "and I'll make sure others don't either." Later, they stepped outside as the sun dipped low, painting the water in gold. Jack's boat rocked gently in the harbor. "This town's hanging by a thread," Jack said quietly. "All I'm asking for is a chance to keep doing what I love." "You have my word," Trump said. The next day, at a rally nearby, Trump stood at the podium, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the fishermen and the meal they'd shared. Mid-speech, he spoke of a man he'd met in Maine. "A fisherman," he said, "someone who works with his hands, who keeps this country moving forward. We can't lose sight of people like him." The crowd applauded, but it was a sincerity in his voice that caught attention. A clip of the moment spread quickly, sparking conversations nationwide. Commentators called unexpected, genuine. Back in Maine, Jack went about his usual routine, unaware of the stir he'd caused. When he finally saw the clip on the news, he shook his head in disbelief. "I just wanted to share a meal," he muttered. Still, he smiled. Soon messages began arriving, from fishermen, from strangers, from people who felt seen. One message stood out, from a local politician interested in supporting small fisheries. A meeting was scheduled. Jack remained skeptical, but as he prepared his nets that evening, the ocean stretching endlessly before him, he wondered if something simple, an honest meal, a quiet conversation, had truly made a difference. Perhaps it had. The politician was well-dressed, his smile polished, and his manner easy, the kind of practiced charisma Jack had learned to distrust over the years. Yet as they sat across from one another, something felt different. The man didn't lecture or condescend. Instead, he listened. He asked careful, pointed questions about the realities of life on the water, the tightening environmental regulations, the rising cost of fuel, and the growing pressure from large corporations squeezing small fishermen out of business. "I want to make sure you get a fair shot," the politician said earnestly. "We're drafting a bill that would offer grants and tax breaks to small operations like yours." Jack, who had spent most of his life skeptical of promises made behind desks far from the docks, felt something unexpected stir inside him. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, things really were beginning to change. A week later, his phone rang. "Jack," came a familiar voice. "It's President Trump." Jack straightened instinctively. "Mr. President." "I just wanted to check in," Trump said. "I heard you're meeting with folks about those grants we talked about. I want to make sure they're treating you right." Jack was stunned. "I didn't expect to hear from you, sir, but I appreciate it." Trump's tone was warm, almost personal. "I'm just doing what I can. People like you, you're the backbone of this country. Don't forget that." Jack swallowed. "Thank you. That really means a lot." Word spread quickly. The town began to feel it, a ripple effect from a single, simple meal. Fishermen gathered to talk, not just about survival, but about unity, about protecting their way of life. Jack was chosen to lead the meetings, not because he sought the role, but because he had spoken up when it mattered. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't wealthy. But he had something more important: a voice. Months passed. With new grants and policies in place, Jack's business began to recover. The media frenzy faded, but the impact endured. One afternoon, while preparing his boat for the next morning's tide, Jack heard the low rumble of engines. A motorcade rolled into town. Trump stepped out, smiling. "Jack, how's the fishing?" Jack laughed. "The fishing's good, Mr. President, but it's the community that's doing better. Feels like we're finally turning a corner." Trump nodded. "I knew you would. People like you don't quit." The next day, Trump addressed the town square. "Because of the hard work and resilience of people like Jack Miller," he announced, "we're investing even more in America's small businesses, especially those who keep our shores strong." The crowd erupted. This wasn't just about fish. It was about being seen. In the years that followed, the town flourished. Businesses grew. Families stayed. And Jack, still rising before dawn, still working the nets, became a symbol of quiet resilience. But to him, the greatest change wasn't financial. It was knowing that something small, an honest meal shared between strangers, had sparked a movement. Jack began speaking to other coastal towns, other communities fighting to be heard. "Don't wait," he told them. "Stand together. The smallest actions can change everything." A year later, Jack stood in Washington, D.C., honored not for his fishing, but for his leadership. When he spoke, his words were simple. "I'm just a fisherman," he said, "but I've learned that sometimes a small kindness can change more than you ever expect." When he returned home, a letter awaited him. It was from Trump. "Jack, I'll never forget that meal. You reminded me what truly matters. Everyday people doing honest work. Thank you." Years later, people still spoke of Jack Miller, not just as a fisherman, but as a reminder that humility, courage, and kindness can ripple far beyond a single moment. And as Jack sat by the water one last time, watching the sun sink into the sea, he smiled, knowing his story would live on, carried forward by tides he had helped turn.